Welcome back, everyone, to the DGAF1 podcast. Today we're going to be talking to you all about the launch of the Stake F1 Kick Sauber C44, which is a mouthful, and appropriately the colour that they've chosen does look a little bit like cat puke green. That is the new car from what is essentially the Sauber team that's been rebranded as Stake. Do you have any thoughts on it, Dave? Initial thoughts?
Yeah, my initial thoughts, and I know we've texted each other a little bit about it. I like it. I'm going to be brutally honest. The launch itself has been the most lively, exciting launch. I know we're only on the third one, but it's the first one where I've gone, oh my god, F1's here. Where we started off with a 1 minute CGI render that someone did on PowerPoint, and then we got Will Buxton talking to two drivers in front of a slightly darker blue version of the car from last year, which was really underwhelming again. And then all of a sudden, Stake hits the screen with all this black and green lightning, like something from Frankenstein's monster, and it just seemed exciting. The first thing that Naomi said when she came out on stage, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically was, "It's nice to be in a room full of people who are so drunk," and I just think it looks cool. I'm going to be honest. The two color combinations I think look really good. Black and green, black and red. Those are my two. So black and green looks good. I think they've gone for the right tone of green as well. I think the green like tints that were used on last year's Mercedes for Hamilton were too neon, too like road worker high-vis jacket. Whereas in my feel, I think this looks awesome. I really do. I do think it looks a little bit like a Monster Energy commercial, but other than that, I think it looks pretty cool. I think the car looks fast. I don't know. We spoke in the Williams one about how can a car look fast, and then I've immediately been proven wrong because that thing does look fast. So those are my initial thoughts. I like it.
Yeah. No, I sort of agree. I have mixed feelings about the launch. So I really like the launch. I agree that it's the best one that we've had so far. Most of that for me was because it was an actually new car that they showed. They said it will be developed from there to Bahrain, but it is the new car that they showed us. They actually had James Key, the technical director, come out and talk through some of the actual changes. It was obvious where there were some changes, and like I say, he actually talked us through them, and it felt much more like what I wanted from an F1 car launch. Like you said, the Williams one kind of just felt like it was taken straight out of one of the F1 games. It was just a little bit bizarre. This one was much better. I'm not so convinced about the colours. I agree this is a better shade of green than the Roadworker green from the Mercedes. But I'm still not super keen on it. I'm also not keen on the fact that they haven't painted most of the car.
I knew this was going to annoy you. Right, when I saw this come out, I saw the open carbon fibre, I was like, oh, Tim ain't going to be happy.
I honestly think there should be some rule that they should institute some rule where you have to paint at least 95% of your car. You can't just roll it out. It just looks like someone's like doodled on it with a marker pen. Having said that, it does look quick. They've definitely made some changes. The underside of the side pods have a deeper cutouts. The top end of the side pods have a sort of lip on the outside of them, which I can't remember which of the cars it looks the most like from last year, but it's sort of the same thing that Aston were doing, but just much less, because Aston have those great big gouges down the inside of their side pods. One thing that I liked about the Sauber from last year, Alfa Romeo, whatever you want to call it, was actually the airbox, that weird like two-tiered level airbox thing that they had going on with the single post, which nearly killed the show. But they have gone away from that now. It's a little bit more normal now. I did find it interesting because I saw that initial, so when they did the thing on the screen, there was that initial like render that they showed of the car before they showed it being painted, and the nose of the render that they showed on the screen looks very different to both last year and what we saw in the room.
You think?
And so it makes me wonder whether or not that is one of the changes that we will see between now and Bahrain, or maybe it's just another version that they came up with they decided not to stick to. But it was a very, very interesting looking nose that we didn't see other than that. It was a couple of seconds right at the beginning of that little bit of video.
Where was this the one that they put up on the screen behind them before they took the tarp off, or is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to skip. Oh yeah,
it was the one on the screen.
Oh yeah, I'm just trying to skip through now to see if I can see exactly. Oh yeah, it's narrower. It's narrower. It's also it's narrower. Okay, and then and then if I go now, I understand this is very boring for people who aren't watching the thing as I'm going through it. But if I go and look at, is it though? I'm trying to find.
I think it is quite different because one we saw in the room looks quite similar to what they had at Abu Dhabi, whereas the one on the screen looked quite different to me anyway.
I don't know if it is, you know. I'm having a real look at. I mean, I'm really flicking through frames here to try and. I haven't got a side by side comparison. Yeah, no, I think it's the same, mate. I think it's just all black. I tell you what, the trick. I'm looking at the front wing. The front wing on the actual car in the room looks very similar to the front wing on the render, in my opinion. But it's very hard to tell. Maybe
because it's all black, maybe it was a trick of the light or something. But I thought I saw something interesting in that nose that I didn't see on the one in the room. Yeah, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what else changes between now and the first race. Obviously, they've also got the new front suspension, so they've now got the same suspension setup that Red Bull have. So most cars on the grid have, I think it's a push rod on the front and a pull rod on the back, whereas Red Bull have a pull rod on the front and a push rod on the back. And for anyone who's, I suppose, less technical, I'm not particularly technical, but I like reading about this stuff. Basically what it means is it stops the car from diving under braking, and so it controls the platform of the car better, and because it's all underfloor downforce now, that should in theory make them better through corners, which is I think part of the reason why Red Bull are so good through the corners.
There was a lot of talk last year about Red Bull's floor being the main thing in the car, other than Max Verstappen, that was making it so fast. And we've touched on it a few times as we've been doing these. Do you think? Have you spotted anything in the three cars we've seen so far, other than obviously the Haas render, so the two, that alludes you to that teams have been kind of copying more of the Red Bull thing? Because obviously, once that Red Bull got lifted up in the air last season, everyone took photos of every underneath. And, you know, Sky News or whoever it was, not Sky News, Sky Sports, I believe, were saying to Christian Horner, like, aren't you annoyed that people have got photographs underneath your car? And his reply back, I believe, was, well, I've got photographs of the underneath of all of their cars. And it's like, well, you may well do, Christian, but that doesn't matter, because you can have the photograph of the underneath of a Golf GTI if you want, mate. Like, no one cares. Like, it's you've got something here that everyone wants. Have you spotted anything so far in the cars that makes you think that, oh yeah, no, they're definitely taking a page out of Red Bull's book?
So yes and no, by which I mean, yes, it is the floor of the Red Bull that does it, but it's not just the design of the underfloor, it's also how that works with the way that the rest of the aero on the car works. And so when I say yes or no, I mean, because everyone is moving closer to their concept for what we can actually see, so we can see the side pods, we can see the deep undercuts, we can see that it rakes towards the back, that suggests that they're probably doing something similar underneath as well, because both bits of it need to work together in order to work. On the car we just saw, on the C44 especially, that is the case with their new design, but also part of what makes Red Bull quick is, so it's how the floor interacts with the rest of the aero surfaces, but it's also how the whole car controls itself. So Mercedes had loads of issues with porpoising and all this stuff, and that affects car performance. And one of the big differentiators that Red Bull have that other teams don't is the way that they do their suspension. And so now that the C44 has moved closer to what has moved to practically the same thing that Red Bull were doing, certainly last year. For all we know, they might have changed it this year. But because they're doing the same thing with the suspension, it's reasonable to believe that they're trying to control the floor in the same way in order to work it the same way that the Red Bull does, probably because they're converging towards similar designs. But it's not the case, I don't think it's the case, I mean, I'm not an aerodynamicist, but I don't think it's the case that you can take a picture of the Red Bull underfloor, recreate that and go, yeah, that's fast now. There's lots of other stuff that you have to do to the car to make it work the same way that the Red Bull does.
But on that point, if you are an aerodynamicist, and maybe if anyone's listening and they want to come on and talk to us about this, please email us. But if you are an aerodynamicist and you have all that knowledge and you're working under the team, can a picture of the floor not be the missing piece? Like, you look at that and you go, light bulb, and you use all that experience and all that knowledge to go, okay, I know what to do now. Draw, build, beat Red Bull.
It could potentially be that simple. I suspect it isn't, and I suspect that from like watching videos of actual aerodynamicists breaking this stuff down and talking about how all of these cars work. But yeah, I mean, this happens every time there's a change in regulations. They all go off in separate directions and try to figure out how best to make it fast. And then whoever's the fastest, people tend to converge towards that design. So you had that with the double diffuser that Braun and Toyota had in 2009. You had that with there were, so interestingly, in the last batch of cars, which I think was from, it was either 17 or 18 to 2021, where there were two competing concepts going on at the same time, and they both ended up being very similar once they reached fruition. So that was like Mercedes, very like long car, very planted to the ground, and then what Red Bull were doing with a sort of high rake, and the teams were split between doing either one or the other one. It's interesting that there's not, I haven't observed that split in the teams. There was initially. So initially there was like what Red Bull were doing and what Ferrari were doing, which was very different to Red Bull's concept. But my guess would be that even Ferrari are going to start moving closer to what Red Bull are doing.
But in that era of cars you were talking about, and I remember following that quite closely, the high rake Red Bull, the long flat Mercedes chassis, wasn't the whole thing was basically it's trading off straight line speed against speed in the corners. Like the Red Bull on very windy short tracks was better, whereas anything with long swooping straights, the Mercedes, they said, was like a bullet and they just couldn't touch them. And so it was Mercedes were going for straight line speed and Red Bull were going for speed in the corners. Nimble.
Yeah, it was a little bit that. It's that they were producing their downforce in different ways. So the purpose of the rake is that it sort of had a similar effect to what the underbodies do now, which is you have a narrow entry for the air at the front, and then you make the car taller as it goes backwards, and that essentially functionally makes the diffuser higher. Then you end up with more underbody downforce, whereas I think the Mercedes emphasized overbody downforce. But as we saw in the 2021 season, when you take both concepts to their logical endpoints, I reckon that year, if both cars had the same engine, it would have been a completely dead heat. like there was some circuits where some were faster, some were slower. Towards the end of the season, it came down to like Mercedes started winning more. But I from what I remember it coming down to stuff like Mercedes saving their engines better than Red Bull had and having more power towards the end of the season. But both concepts were just as effective towards the end, which I thought was interesting. I think it would be great if there was something like that now. Maybe Mercedes will do something interesting this year. But having said that, already last year when they finally got rid of the zero side pods, they were already tending back towards the Red Bull shape. So I think this year already, I think well, we don't know what the Williams looks like, but I imagine it's going in that direction already. The Haas and the Sauber look quite similar. I imagine the Williams probably won't when we actually see the car.
It's an interesting topic. So anyway, steak. We kind of moved on a little bit. More topics of conversation, exciting things about the launch. I want to talk about Valtteri's hair. I mean, when do you not want to talk about Valtteri's hair? But come on, Valtteri's hair. Yeah,
I made a note that he looks like he'd just been pulled out of a piss up at Bondi.
Yeah, no, but the guy is, what do they call him, an honorary Australian? Like, he's full on living that life now, and fair play to him, and it's awesome. I just like the guy. You know, when he was driving for Williams, I didn't really know who he was, if I'm honest. I was also quite new to the sport back in those days. And then, of course, he joined Mercedes and became what Hamilton has come to say his best teammate he's ever had. And I think on his own merit, he's a bloody good racing driver. And I just like the guy. And I think now that he's gone off and he's been with Sauber for a couple of seasons and he's been able to figuratively and literally let his hair down, has been awesome to see. And now he's, dyed it bleach blonde, full moustache and go, and ended his session on the stage by saying, let's go racing. And that's what you want to see. You want to see the drivers raring to go, excited by the car. And I think that's what we got out of this launch. As I said at the top, this is the first one we've seen, and we're only 3 in. We've got 7 more to go. That has got me up and raring, excited for Bahrain. I want to see that car on track, and I want to see it be rapid.
I mean, I'm definitely more excited for Bahrain after having seen that. What I have to say, Valtteri didn't look excited when he was looking at the car. I don't know if you noticed him and Zhou talking to each other over the car. It's like they'd never seen it before. Yeah, and they were both surprised. Valtteri did not look happy.
Do you think?
No. Well, I don't know. There were a couple of faces he pulled there because obviously the thing was was filmed live.
I thought the same thing as you when they started, wandering off and looking around the car and stuff, but. And I agree, it looked like they'd never seen the thing before. They must have done, right? But what I also think is, I think drivers just naturally, if they've got a F1 car next or any car next to them, they just naturally look around it, even if they've seen it a million times. They're always looking at, this, that, and the other. But there may well have been a tiny few tweaks that were changed between the last time they saw it and the time that it got on stage. It could be that they'd not seen it with the livery on yet, and it looked a bit different to them. It could be anything. But I did find it interesting when Zhou was leaning over the car, kind of saying something, and Valtteri was looking a bit puzzled. It does make you wonder. Yeah, is there something going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it could just be that was an older version of the car, that they already have a more developed version, so maybe they hadn't seen it, or they were pointing out how it's different now. It could be that. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how quick that car actually ends up being, because it is so different from last year. There is the potential for them to get even higher up the midfield than they were previously. I think something else I also want to talk about is just the event as a whole. It was a little bit like it got me more excited for the rest for the rest of the launches and for Bahrain. But as a comedian, I feel like Naomi could use an MC course.
Yeah. She just went, and welcome to the stage, your drivers. And then there was nothing, and then they walked on, and then people started clapping, and you almost watch it going, you want to go, well, on the stage, Valtteri, Bottas, and she's got none, like, bless her, she's got none of that.
No, she's a great pundit. Actually, I like listening to her when she has like opinions about stuff on Sky Sports. But as a presenter for something like that, less so. Also, is it just me or did Alessandro seem a little bit drunk?
Probably. I mean, apparently there was a lot of champagne drank in there before anyone got on stage, so it's very likely.
Yeah.
But, he's not behind the wheel of the car. He's launching his car. Why not? Have a drink. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Why not? I've never seen it like. It was weird for me to hear him speak as well because he's quite eloquent, but his English is good from an eloquence perspective, as in like good vocabulary. But I've never seen words pronounced with emphasis on those bits of those words. I
thought he sounded a bit like Borat. Did you not think? I hope that's not an offensive thing to say. I think Borat's hilarious, but that was the first person that came to mind. So it sounds like Borat.
Yeah, it's just like I'm sure very competent, perfectly nice guy. It's just kind of weird listening to him speak.
Yeah. I liked it. Look, I liked it. I thought it was. I think it's a great looking car, in my opinion. I like the green, and I think it would have been nice. I say nice is a bit of a weird thing to say. I think it would have been good if the guys were in their race suits. Like we saw, because then you've got the whole package. Like what the car looks like, what the race suits. I mean, you can infer that the race suits are going to be black with green arms from the t-shirts, but it would have been nice to see them in the race suits and gone full on. But they did it the way that they did it. There's nothing wrong with that. But
yeah. I'd still like them to paint more of the cars. But other than that, I like it.
You want to make it regulation, don't you? That if you can have black bits, but it has to be black paint.
Oh, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah? Do that.
Yeah, paint it black. If you really want it black, paint it.
Because that might actually force cooler liveries. If they're like, well, we've got to paint it anyway. Am I just an idiot, or are different colours different weights? I've heard that before. That might be total rubbish, but I've heard before that certain cars used to paint cars certain colours because the paints themselves were lighter.
It wouldn't surprise me. Having said that, I'm not sure that the paint on those cars is paint anyway.
You think it's like wrap?
Yeah, I think they're decals. Certainly, all of the sponsors are decals. Certainly,
maybe it would make more sense that they were wrapped because it's so much easier to change.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you got a piece of bodywork, and 1 week you've got a special livery, and then the next week you're going back to your normal one. You got to either have different panels, or you've got to strip them and repaint them, potentially damage them. Whereas run a hot gun over the vinyl and just pull it off. So I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think that makes more sense. Have you got any more thoughts? Or any closing thoughts on it, or any kind of big topics you want to discuss about the launch?
No, well, the only other one is, and this probably been said to death, but I still think it's weird that the team is called Stake, and also that the two title sponsors, because there are two, Stake and Kick, are both owned by the same company. They're both functionally the same company. I don't know why they felt the need to put both names in there. Because
they'd be subsidiaries of the main company, so they want to push both brands, and it's probably cheaper for them because they are one company. It's probably cheaper for them to put two of their brands on than it would be for two individual brands to come in.
Maybe. But also, yeah, again, like, I don't like naming stuff after brands, and the next one we're getting to is Visa Cash App RB, which is just horrific.
Is that going to happen?
Yeah.
Really? They're going to call it the Cash App?
Yeah, it's literally called Visa Cash App RB. It's technically Racing Bulls, but they haven't written out Racing Bulls anywhere. So the name of the team is Visa Cash App RB.
And this is for what used to be AlphaTauri.
Toro Rosso or AlphaTauri.
Yeah. Why don't they just call it Jack Dorsey F1 team? Because that'd do, wouldn't it? Like, it's his app.
Might as well.
May as well put his name on it. It's just another thing that Elon's going to buy off him. Funny.
Well, that Elon will be forced to buy off him.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, that's a different podcast.
It is.
I think my closing thing is just I like the car. I'm looking forward to seeing it on track, and I'm excited. I'm always excited for a new Formula One season, but I'm a bit more excited now, and I'm actually excited to see what the other teams have prepared and if any of them will be scrambling the last minute to change anything, because I think a lot of teams will have been watching the Haas and the Williams launches and gone, we've got this in the bag as far as hype go, and then Stake drop this, and it'd be interesting to know if there are any teams on the grid looking at that going, oh crap, like, how are we going to top that? Because you don't want to be the team that, like, when Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari drop their cars, everyone will be talking about it just because of who they are, right? But if you're Aston Martin, like, it could be an anticlimax. So I'm speculating. I'm talking rubbish for the sake of it. But I just thought it was a really good launch.
Look, Visa Cash App RB's one might be quite good actually, because theirs is in Las Vegas on Thursday, and the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas on Sunday. Yeah. So it's in the run up to the Super Bowl. They've probably got something interesting going on. I don't know if they will do this because I haven't been able to find the time or location for the event. It would be cool if they did it in that great big globe thing that they have in Las Vegas.
Is that
and just
still
stuck,
up?
Like, visuals on there.
I thought they'd take that down and they're going to build it for each year. Is that permanent fixture now?
I think it's permanent. I don't know why that would be permanent.
It is massive.
Absolutely massive.
It is massive. I mean, when I first saw the images of the big emoji face and the eyes would follow cars, I thought that was fake. I thought, someone's had a bit of fun, CGI'd that on for a laugh. And then when I saw it was real, I was like, Christ, they have gone all out on this.
I doubt they will use that. It would be cool if they did, though. But yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out on Thursday, and you will all hear about it when we eventually get around to talking about it.
Absolutely. All right. Awesome, mate. Well, I'll talk to you on the next one.
Yeah, excited.